Hey there, this is Pat Ennis of Ennis Legacy Partners. Welcome to the Exit Readiness podcast. I'm here with co-host Walter Dial, who's tax partner at GRF CPAs and Advisors in Bethesda, Maryland. And my business partner, Corby McGordon, is also here with us today. Our mission on the podcast is to provide you, the business owner, with subject matter expertise on topics pertaining to building sellable or transferable business value, and then for planning your eventual exit from the business. We want to help you build a business that's sellable and then exit successfully on your own terms and conditions. The problem we're going to be talking about today is your business continuing if you're no longer able to run it. So the business continuing in unexpected situations where you're not continuing to run the business. Most owners would want their business to continue for at least a period of time if they were to unexpectedly pass away or become permanently incapacitated. But all too often, due to a lack of pre-planning, the business dies when the owner can no longer be available due to one of these following situations, impacting negatively the employees, customers, and all stakeholders. But most importantly, the owner's spouse and or family. Mm-hmm. When it comes to exit planning, if it's important to you that the business indeed continues, if you don't, for some reason, this really is the first area that you should focus on. So our topic today, business continuity, a plan for the unexpected. We're going to talk about three planning issues. Number one, continuity of ownership. Number two is, let's see, oh gosh.
Loss of financial
resources. Yeah. Number two is the problem of the company's loss of financial support or resources if something does happen to you. You know what, Joe, should I start all over? Joe? He must have gone to the bathroom. Shoot. Okay. My mind just went blank. Okay. Let me start all over. Hey there, this is Pat Ennis of Ennis Legacy Partners. Welcome to the Exit Readiness podcast. I'm here with co-host Walter Dial, who's tax partner at GRF CPAs and Advisors here in Bethesda, Maryland. And with us today too is Corby McGordon, my business partner at Ennis Legacy Partners. Our mission here on this podcast is to provide you, the business owner, with subject matter expertise on topics pertaining to building sellable or transferable business value, and then planning for your eventual exit from the business. We know this, 100% sure. At some point, you're going to exit from the business, and we want it to be successful and help you do that. We want to help you build a business that is indeed transferable and then exit successfully on your own terms and conditions. And the problem we're going to be talking about today is your business continuing if you're no longer available to run it. Most business owners would want their business to continue for at least a period of time if they were to unexpectedly die or become permanently incapacitated. But all too often, due to a lack of planning, the business dies when the owner can no longer be available due to one of these situations, impacting negatively the employees, customers, and all stakeholders. But most importantly, the owner's spouse and or family. So when it comes to exit planning, comprehensive exit planning, if it's important to you that the business indeed continue, if you don't, for some reason, this really should be the first area to focus on. And that's the topic today, business continuity, a plan for the unexpected. We're going to talk about three planning issues. Continuity of ownership, addressing that's number one. Number two, addressing the problem of the company's loss of financial resources. And then number three, addressing the loss of key talent, you, the owner, And then lastly, we'll also talk about the loss of employees and customers. Okay, so let's get started with that planning issue number one. Walter, let's look to you for this to address to start the conversation about this issue. Continuity of ownership. First for the co-owners. Okay, so we got two situations. Continuity of ownership for partners in a partner situation, and then for a sole owner, because it's different.
Right. So the nice thing about a company that has multiple owners is that you potentially have kind of built-in continuity, at least as far as, you know, the business being able to continue to run. So that's a big benefit.
Mhm.
But where the big issue comes there is, how are you going to structure that so that if a partner dies or becomes disabled or something, that his estate or his family is compensated for the value of his interest in the company? And that's pretty easily done in the co-owner situation, just through a buy-sell agreement that is funded usually with some type of insurance. So as long as that's in place, it's an easy way to take care of that problem. And most companies, when they form, you know, they're doing a pretty good job of documenting things and getting things up and running, and the buy-sell agreement will be part of that, and even the insurance policies will probably be part of that. The step that we often see that companies fail to do is continually updating the buy-sell agreement. So, you know, you can add partners. So every time you add an owner or a partner, you need to update it. The value of the company can change, so you need to update the insurance policies, things like that. So I think what we usually see is that multiple owner companies, they've done the initial steps to ensure continuity. They just need to stay on top of updating those.
Yeah, can I interject something?
Yeah.
Like just an exclamation mark kind of thing. We did a podcast on buy-sell agreements.
Yep.
I forget when, but it's in our archives.
Yep.
And it's very, very important to have these things structured right. I just read a blog post on it too the other day. In order to your point, really, if they're not kept current and updated, they can end up causing more problems than what they solve.
Yeah.
But boy, they can solve a whole lot of problems if indeed they are written right and kept current, and they're aligned with the goals of the owners. So if you have one in place and you haven't looked at it in a long time, and it's not unusual, is it, fellas?
No.
Yeah, I looked at it 20 years ago. Don't wait until it's needed to review it, because you might be disappointed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything
So-
else about that, Walter?
No, I think that covers it for co-owners.
Mhm.
The solely owned business has a whole different set of problems potentially. And that's because, you know, obviously there isn't a built-in person to just take the company and keep it going. So a lot of the work I know you do with the business owners that we work with is help them to potentially groom a successor, or at least get a strong management team in place so that the business is not so dependent upon them. So ideally, the sole owner is going to have an idea of people on his team who will be able to take over the company. And again, that could be funded with life insurance or some other way. That's really important. Now, you know, there are clients we work with who they've tried, and they just right now at least do not have a viable person inside their company to take it over. In those situations, it's helpful, for instance, if your spouse is going to inherit the company, it's really helpful if you can at least give them an idea of some people you know in the industry, or perhaps competitors who've expressed an interest in your company. So they have a starting point of, you know, they can start dialoguing with people who may be interested in taking over the company. Because, you know, the big risk is for the sole owner is he died, you know, he's got a valuable asset, but he hasn't properly insured himself. He hasn't built a transferable business because he doesn't have the management team in place. he drops dead or becomes disabled, and all of a sudden their, the financial asset that represents 90% of their wealth drops in value by half that day. So, that's very, very dangerous. And that's one of the first things we look at when we deal with clients. And Pat, something you do, you'll have to tell the listeners which or maybe both your websites it's available on, but the business continuity instructions, those are really helpful. Even, it just kind of is good just for the day-to-day operations, like, where are the bank accounts, who are the main clients, how, what's the plan for letting people know that that something bad has happened. That's really important. And it's, these other things are kind of bigger issues, but the business continuity instructions are very helpful just to help the day-to-day operations continue smoothly.
Yeah, well, you know what? They can access that, and it's a real nice document. We
Yeah.
created a fillable PDF and everything. It's a great document. If you don't know where to start, you want to start by yourself without a firm like us, but you should start with a firm like us. But if you can go to either one of our websites, Ennis, like NSLP.com or exitreadiness.com, and get the document for free. You got to put in your email address, of course, but we're not real good about digital marketing, so you don't really have to be real concerned. We need to get better at it, but you can get it, and it can actually serve as a guide as to what you need to have in place for effective continuity plan. So for sole owners, in summary, Walter, for owners, sole owners, continuity of ownership, create that future ownership group or groom a successor, and the
Yep.
ownership group can either be key employees and or family. However, more and more we're finding that family members, kids don't want to own the business, but that's an option. If there are no potential insider successors, the owner might identify and approach a competitor about buying her business at death, and put that in the instructions, maybe even have a formal buy. This happens occasionally where there's a formal buy-sell agreement in place with competitors. Yep. But whatever you do, to your point, again, we can't say this enough, communicate your desires and wishes by creating what we call business continuity instructions. It's not a legal document. It works in concert with your estate planning documents. Very helpful, works alongside your estate planning documents real well, helping everyone know what to do if something suddenly happens to you. All right, good. So let's move on to issue number 2 then. Corb, I'm going to point to you on this one, and just addressing the problem of companies' loss of financial resources. Yeah. This is a big deal. This is often overlooked too.
Yeah, I think, business owners own their business. They own the asset, and they built it with sweat equity as well as their finances. And I think that's something that as things evolve, an owner can actually kind of assume it as normal and kind of forget that the business's financial success is very much appended to their own financial success. Owners have the benefit of being able to decide, do I leave X amount of money in the company, or do I pull it out to use it for other means? Mm-hmm. When you flip that around, when there's time to put money back into the company or to borrow money for the company so that it can operate, very much tied to the owner's personal finances. And so this is just a real critical issue. And when an owner either becomes incapacitated or passes away, the financial surety that any bank has leaned upon, the contractual obligations for leases and those kinds of things, they're all tied directly to the individual owner, which can just cause a can of worms in all kinds of ways. Even with understanding debtors, it's still, they have a job to do, and there's a contract that was signed. So those things have got to, one, be identified. Where is indeed the company dependent upon the owner's personal guarantees? Mm-hmm. And now how do we mitigate against that? And
Mhm.
So identification of where is the first one. And then secondarily, it winds up being ensuring that both a legal capacity to actually transfer responsibility to the next party is established, as well as then that Walter mentioned insurance, that there's also finances available. Oftentimes, an insurance policy will be taken out on an owner for either death or disability, just to infuse the company with some cash as a stopgap while some of the bugs are worked out. Yeah, again, as Walter said, if it's a co-owned business, two owners, it becomes a little simpler, and the life insurance, agreements can come into place so that the one that becomes the owner also has the finances to be able to back it up. But I was aware of a case where somebody did not have this in place. Husband had a stroke, and he was the only one that could sign a check. And by God's grace, they were able to do a legal board decision to allow the wife to sign a check that day. But if they hadn't been able to, really the financial machine would have come to a stop. So identify where the owner is the key person, and then get the right team on board to establish both the legal and financial ability to continue financial operations.
Yep. Okay, very good. Excellent. Walter, do you have anything else to add to what Corby said? No?
No.
Okay. Okay, planning issue number 3. I'll take this one. Addressing the loss of key talent, and that would be you, the owner, in this situation. Again, sorry we have to keep killing you off here, but we do. An owner's death, your death or permanent incapacity would have the same impact on your business as would the loss of your most key employee. So when we say who's your most key employer and key employees, when they come to mind, and then we ask you what would happen to your business if something happened to them, it's usually not real good. Well, it's true for you too, particularly if you're still somewhat central to the business. So it's going to have loss of your talent and your experience, institutional knowledge, if you will, your impact on relationships with vendors, customers, of course, and then the employees. You have brought a certain level of leadership and management to the employees that they've come to trust in, maybe even like and appreciate. And when you're gone, if you're gone suddenly, they need to know there's a plan in place. That's another aspect of this. So without planning here, few businesses have the financial resources or successive management to weather the storm of losing the most key employee, usually you, the owner, in small businesses. And the problem, and that's a sole owner, of course, but the problem can also impact a co-owned company if your partners do not have your talent, your specific talent or skill set, knowledge, or experience. They'll need to replace you as soon as possible, or your skill and talents and knowledge. And that, of course, is going to cost money. And they're going to do that either with a key employee or a new hire, which takes time. Bring them on, train them up, and it takes money. So planning solutions here for number 3. And again, number 3, the planning issue is addressing the loss of key talent, you, the owner. Planning solutions would include begin as soon as possible in building a successive management team. It's kind of a theme here, capable of filling the void left by you, your unexpected departure. And then again, another theme here is the use of key person life insurance, as well as disability buyout insurance. And just real quick, what that is, it's not disability income. It's disability buyout. It's a lump sum payment, the way you would receive, the way beneficiaries would receive a benefit, proceeds from a life insurance contract, same thing with disability buyout. And so the contracts like that, insurance contracts are used for all of these problems we're bringing up today, actually, to provide liquidity for all these issues, transition, replacement, and training. And then, okay, Walter and Corby, let's address this last issue together, the problem of loss of employees and customers. You know, the death of an unprepared owner here can easily result in both employees and customers leaving the business, which in turn has, of course, negative impact on revenue, profitability, and as you mentioned earlier, Walter, the value of the business starts to decline when maybe the family needs it. So what are some other thoughts about this particular issue that you guys might have?
I mean, one thing that comes to mind, which I think is some listeners may be familiar with, would be the concept of a stay bonus.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea there is that you identify your key employees, you know, people who it's going to be really important that they stay with the business in the event of, and it can really be in the event that you selling the company or you dying and leaving the company that way. And what that basically does is it'll pay them, these are pretty large bonuses. So oftentimes it's like 50% of their annual salary, like 6 months after the date of the death, and then another 50% at the 12-month mark. The idea being that as long as these key people stay, your other employees are going to see that. So hopefully attrition won't be so bad, and they'll be able to keep the company going. And obviously there's substantial bonuses, so it ties them in. If nothing else, it gives the spouse, you know, hopefully a year or so to be able to kind of orderly sell the company.
Yeah. We just, as you guys know, we just put something like that in place for one of our clients, so that if something happens to her, indeed, she wants the business to continue for a period of time so that it could be sold at a fair market value rather than fire sale prices. And we helped her to understand that in order to do that, the employees are going to have to be real warm and fuzzy about staying and motivated to stay. And so now she's got a stay bonus plan in place, so she's going to put one in place. It's in process to make sure that happens, to keep them on board. So great point. Corb, anything from you?
Yeah, you know, another key issue, we often say that, you know, exit planning is just good business planning. And we've been touching on the theme, Pat mentioned it, that the need for a management team and a management succession plan. And I think at times we can think, even because we're talking, there's a catastrophe here, now let's execute a plan. No. Instead, every business owner should have a management succession plan to get them out of the day-to-day so that others can actually pick up the ball and run with it. And, you know, may you stay healthy and live to 120, but still you're going to enjoy the business a lot more. You know, that said, there are times where there needs to be an immediate, we got to get people in the slots. And simple recommendation there is oftentimes we ask for an organizational chart. A business doesn't have one, but I would highly recommend creating what we would call a functional organizational chart. There's an executive office, there's sales, there's HR finance, there's operations, and various and sundry other roles. Your name is probably in many of those boxes, but if that organizational chart exists with your name in the boxes, it's easy enough to define. If you can't do that, well, what name goes in that box? You know, and that is a management succession plan. It doesn't have to be anything super fancy, but it's also something that will enable you to transition out of owner centricity while you're healthy. And, you know, last footnote is that a stat a while ago is a full 50% of management transitions are unplanned. That's 50%. Most business owners plan to live forever and, you know, stay at the desk as long as they want. but it doesn't always happen that way. So,
Yeah, good, Corb. And then too, the last thing I might add on this particular piece, keeping the employees and the customers on board and happy, is your decisions, you as the owner, if you can make them sooner rather than later, it's decisions regarding the sale, the eventual sale or transfer of the business, how decisions about these problems that we've been bringing up today in regard to continuation and then liquidation of your business in the event of a death or disability. The sooner you can make those decisions and start to put a plan in place, the better off you're going to be. Okay, so in closing, in summary here, guys, let me just kind of capture a little bit in summary what we've talked about, and then Walter, you can wrap us up today.
Okay.
In the case of transfers during an owner's lifetime, you have the luxury of time to find and train your replacement. Not so in the case of death. So it's better to do it while you're alive. Your business must have ongoing management and adequate cash to survive the problems that we've talked about today. So management team, of course, has been a theme today for continuity. If you're an owner of a multi-owner, if you're one owner of a multi-owner company, make sure your buy-sell agreement is what? Current and regularly reviewed. In the short term, immediately following the death or permanent disability of an owner, money is required to do the following. To do what? Trigger a buyout, provide dollars for CapEx or capital expenditures, replace your personal balance sheet with respect to lenders, provide cash incentives, the stay bonuses that Walter was talking about to entice employees to stay, replace the loss of business value that you brought to the business, you, the owner, key employee. The management team must be capable really of taking the company to the next level, hopefully, motivated, incented to grow the business and remain long after, or for whatever period you decide you want the business to continue. You might want it to continue long enough for your estate to sell it, but to sell it at fair market value versus fair market or fire sale. Or you might want it to continue indefinitely so that it can be passed on to your children who are in the business, want to do it, but they're young and they're not ready. So all of that needs to be thought through. And Walter mentioned this too, document those desires and instructions in business continuity instructions document that you can access at either Ennis, lp.com or exitreadiness.com. So that's my summary. Guys, would you add anything to that summary before Walter closes us?
No,
That's good.
Okay, good. All right, WD.
Listeners, if you want help in planning business continuity, as we've been discussing today, please get in touch with us at exitreadiness.com or email at exitreadiness.com. If you use the code podcast when setting up a free exitreadiness.com account, you'll receive a 10% discount on any products purchased. Till next time on the Exit Readiness podcast, this is Walter Dial, Pat Ennis, and Corby McGordon signing off.